Mary White. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm Mary White, co-chair of WEED with co-chair Manoush Zomoradinia. We will start with a land acknowledgement and some announcements. WEED's office sits on the territory of Wichin, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chocone-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. The land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwima Ohlone tribe and other familiar descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize the Muwika Ohlone tribe who are campaigning to become federally recognized, the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, who are researching, revitalizing, and preserving Ramaytush Ohlone history and culture, and the Confederated Village of LeJeune and the Segura Te Land Trust, who are working to return native land back to Indigenous stewardship. So if you wish, please type your own land acknowledgement in the chat. We welcome you to celebrate the artists of Art on the Edge, From Extraction to Restoration and Regeneration, Part 1 at Gallery Route 1 in Point Reyes, California, and to hear about their work tonight. If you missed the Monday presentation of the other artists in the exhibition, please find the link to the recorded presentation on weedartist.org. This fall, WEED is focusing on the theme of extraction, fueled by the larger extraction project of exhibitions and events all over the world. And Sam Pelt is now one of the main people running this. So if you want to find more information about it, there is an extraction.com website. We chose to add a hopeful focus to our titles, launching a new issue of the magazine and to Art on the Edge, From Extraction to Restoration and Regeneration exhibitions. Part 2 will be in San Bruno at the Peninsula Art Museum, and curator and exhibition head Lauren Elder will say more about it at the end of the presentation. WEED is launching this year a 25 years of WEED campaign for $25,000. Our vision is expanding as our global network of women artists, activists grows, and we are fundraising to develop a web platform that will meet the needs of our international cohort and be more well-designed and current. So we please give generously to support this vision, either by visiting the website and finding the donate button or sending a check to the WEED office. Now I'd like to introduce our hardworking organizing team who've done a wonderful job organizing this event. Just a minute, I need to get back to my site and I got screen shared. Excuse me, just a minute here. Sharon Siskin is the vice chair and our Zoom host. Lauren Elder is head of exhibitions. Pamela Blotner and is co-curator, and Manoush Zomoradinia will be around for a little while. Pamela, the sequence of what we're going to do is Pamela will give us an introduction of the exhibition and describe the extraction project, and Christina will, our board member, Secretary Christina Bertia, will show the artist images while the artists speak. We will have plenty of time for questions and answers from 6 to 6:30, and please put your questions in the chat for everybody if you want to ask a question before that time. Probably we'll address them at 6. And remember, please keep your audio muted unless presenting during the presentations. So now I'd like to introduce Pamela Blotner.
Hello and welcome. I should say that Gallery Route 1 is on coastal Miwok land. And we are meeting with them, Tony and I, on Saturday. So once that's said, first of all, it was a privilege and a pleasure, a real pleasure to work on this exhibition. And alongside Tony Littlejohn, my curator, co-curator, and a co-founder of Gallery Route 1. We're happy to have worked on this show, which has had quite an interesting reaction, quite a good reaction. It's paired with two other shows, one by Betsy Kellis and I think it's Day Night Press, and another by Will Toms, and then there is our show. So we had a challenging time to curate the show because there was so much good work to look at and so much hard work. But we were guided by two things. One is GRO's mission, which was to present contemporary art exhibitions, education programs, and community outreach, in order to inspire people to experience the world in new ways. We also had our WEED mandate, which is to select those artworks which directly and articulately address their difficult subject matter, and whose aim was to inform and heighten viewers' awareness while eliciting their compassion. And I have to say that a lot of people, myself included, did not know what was meant by extraction, by the term extraction, until this show came around. I myself have been looking at issues of copper extraction, and there are wonderful pieces here on gold extraction. There is also animal extraction, both in terms of what's pulled out of the ocean and what's made endangered on the land. Let's see, anybody can jump in, different kinds of extraction. But in any event, all of the artists present here have found a wonderful subject in depicting this. And again, it wasn't easy to make selections amongst these works because so many are moving and stunning in every sense of that word. And the artists in the show have been courageous too in the way that they've made what they've made, because the work is of course difficult, but unstintingly passionate.
Thank you, Pamela. Now we're going to move on to a quick tour, just a quick walking tour through the gallery, just so the artists who will not be able to attend in person have an idea. So here we are entering the rooms that our show occupies, and then we're circling around to the right, going clockwise, and continuing around to the right, and then back to where we entered the space that the WEED show is occupying. And then here we are moving towards the second sort of room that our show is in, and moving around the corner and looking back towards where we had entered in the first room, and then continuing circling around clockwise. And here we are back to where we started. So just so you have a little bit of a sense of the space, it's really a lovely space, and the show is very, very attractive. So, and now we invite our Margaret LeJeune to tell us about her two pieces.
Thank you, Christina. And thank you so much for that walkthrough. It's really nice to be able to see the show from afar like that. It's really wonderful. As Christina mentioned, my name is Margaret LeJeune. I'm a professor of photography at Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, though I'm currently on a one-year visiting position at Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. I mention this because my universities have been extremely supportive of my work, and I'm very grateful for that. The title of this work is Watershed Triptych. It's part of a larger series called Growing Light. In this series, I draw from both biological sciences and the humanities to explore wonders of the natural world and the threats that humans pose to them. Using photographic processes that harness the intermittent and fleeting glow of bioluminescent climate change indicators, including algae, bacteria, insects, and fungi, I create imagery meant to evoke a sense of curiosity and wonder in the connections between species. As a marriage of conceptual photography and scientific exploration, these works provoke discussion about technical possibilities in photography, as well as a larger dialogue about climate change, the sixth extinction, and the important and precarious interconnections among all living things. This work was created with the dinoflagellate Pyrocystis noctiluca, which is more commonly known as sea sparkle. I used the light of this organism to illuminate watershed mapping information from the USGS Hydrosheds project. I use a photographic technique called a photogram, which is a cameraless way of making an image and uses only the light of the organism covered by the map of the watersheds to expose photographic film. These dinoflagellates are the same organism that cause harmful algal blooms known as red tides. These blooms occur when there is an overflow of excessive nutrients from large-scale factory farming and concentrated animal feeding operations during severe flooding and storm events. Harmful algal blooms, though sometimes occurring naturally, have been increasing in number over the last 30 years. Some scientists believe that this is due to the combination of industrialized farming operations coupled with global warming, sea level rise, and warming ocean temperatures. If you could move to the next slide now, please. Thank you. The second piece is titled Bird Song Number 2. It's from a series titled Shifting Halo, which I began while I was on an artist residency at the University of Notre Dame's Environmental Research Center in Wisconsin. Working alongside entomologists, dendrochronologists, and other scientific researchers, I was inspired to consider the ways in which climate change is affecting extinction rates of resident birds. Resident birds, for those who don't know, are those who don't migrate, but rather call a particular place home all year round. So in this body of work, I examined specifically how climate change and logging practices are impacting the boreal forest. This landscape, also known as the emerald halo, is habitat to many resident species and also serves as an important carbon sink. When the forest is clear-cut, carbon that has been sequestered in the trees and soil is released into the atmosphere and habitats are lost. Some people claim that replanting the forest cancels out the emissions, but that's just not true. The rate at which young trees can pull carbon out of the air cannot match the denuding. In addition to undermining carbon storage, these forestry practices also displace the resident birds. I've composited sound waves of the boreal chickadee in several images in this series to silently echo the depleting number of avian species in this shifting landscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. And next up is Bonnie Peterson.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much to the Weed volunteers and Gallery Route 1 for making the show happen. And I've really enjoyed watching the other artists' talks from Monday. I'm Bonnie Peterson, and right now I'm located in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan near Lake Superior. We get about 200 inches of snowfall in the winter, but our winters are shortening on both ends. I started making embroideries with climate data while working on artist-scientist projects at the University of Wisconsin and Northern Arizona University. Each project began with education and research into published journal articles, satellite data, and climate proxy data. In this work, I'm using embroidery on silk to illustrate sea level rise in atmospheric CO2. The orange graph has 120 years of tide gauge records with a 3-year average running through it. Sea level is rising, and more important, it's rising faster since 1900 than any century in the last 3,000 years. Global warming causes the sea level to rise in 2 ways. First, the ice sheets are melting, and second, the volume of the ocean expands as the water warms. It's continuing to rise at about 1/8 of an inch per year. The lower graph shows 800,000 years of CO2 in our atmosphere. Carbon dioxide remains in the atmosphere for centuries and in the ocean for even longer. The last time the Earth experienced a comparable concentration of CO2 was 3 to 5 million years ago, when the temperature was 2 or 3 degrees Celsius warmer, and the sea level was 10 to 20 meters higher than right now. It's a heat trapping gas released primarily in burning fossil fuels, and this has raised CO2 concentrations from about 217 parts per million back in pre-1850, pre-industrial, to 414 today. Fossil fuel emissions originate from coal, oil, gas, and making cement. CO2 is measured using satellites and air samples. The CO2 that existed 800,000 years ago is reconstructed from air bubbles trapped in polar ice cores, which is an example of using climate proxy data. The situation with CO2 is actually worse than this, though, because only 45% of annual CO2 emissions stay in the atmosphere. The other 55% isn't in this graph. It's basically soaked up by the oceans and land. I just want to mention another proxy data set that I used, and that's for California's 500-year drought, which is a work at the Fresno Art Museum through January 9th. Also, next April, I'll be investigating the environment around Point Reyes at a Lucid Foundation artist residency. And email me if you have any ideas. My webpage is a lot more climate topics in a category Art plus Science. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Bonnie. Next, we have Jane Skafte with 2 wonderful paintings.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Jane Skafte. I just want to thank you for this opportunity to share my work about extraction. I have 2 pieces in this show, and in my work, I take sort of a hybrid approach to, I do a compilation of different events. In the one that is on the screen, it's called Mudslide, and it uses this idea of mythology of the elephant who holds the earth on his back. In some illustrations, it's the elephants are actually standing on top of a sea turtle, and then the elephants are holding the planet. And in my depiction, all of the mountain has been clear cut and wasted, and the mudslides have crushed the elephant. So its metaphor is to show the power of what we're doing to destroy our own environment. I like using colored pencil because it's very sensitive, and it's a sensual medium that I've often thought that it kind of tricks the viewer into examining things that would be very difficult to confront. So I don't use a lot of violets in my violent pictures. So it remains very serene and calm while you're looking at complete devastation. Can I have the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. This one is called Oil Spill, and as in the previous image, this is a compilation of various events, showing how the oil spill is destroying wildlife and coastal areas, as well as under the ocean, destroying coral reefs. And so you've got this combination of environments, and I depicted it by putting them into a cross section. I started this series a few years ago, and it's remained sort of an interest of mine as a way of answering what, you know, I feel like it's our job as artists in our generation to talk about these things, because we're sort of the last hope, I think. Anyway, so thank you for letting me share, and I really do. I'm really honored to be a part of this group.
Thank you very much, Jane. The next, Tammy West.
Hey there. This is the title of this is Keeping It Together. And before I start talking about that, I just want to thank Weed and all the volunteers that made the show happen. I'm speaking to you from Austin, Texas, and this piece was done in Austin, where we've had an intense amount of drought. And I know California, where most of you are from, have really been hit hard with the drought recently. So this would probably speak very well to what you've been experiencing recently. So due to fossil fuels, more than 50% of Western states and 75% of drought-ridden areas in the Four Corners region are categorized as either extreme or exceptional drought, which was a change from previous decades. Trapped heat draws out more moisture from the soil, making drought worse. Reduced snowpack, earlier snowpack decreased by 40% in some Western areas over the past 35 years. This year, California is less than 50% of normal snowpack, and upper Colorado Basin only at 75% of its median. Increased temps are increasing evaporation. Last spring, soil moisture in the West was the lowest level in 120 years, and fuel moisture in Santa Cruz Mountains are at a record low. Global drought severity is everywhere. The Mediterranean, Western Amazon, South Africa, Russia, India, Australia, Southern Europe. And it also affects our creatures. It reduces the viability of our ecosystems, from forest diebacks to fish kills, decline in wildlife, pest outbreaks. In the future, I was surprised by this one. In the future, we're expecting more rainfall overall in the US, but increase in evaporation will outpace increase in precipitation, making drought worse. So the trapped gases will evaporate more. So about my piece and the reason why I did this, I have a big series that talks about the emotion behind the effects of climate change. And a lot of them are holding things down, like a glacier with climbing rope and stakes. This one is holding together a crack with yarn and nails. So this series speaks to the emotion behind what we're all feeling. I'm hoping that this will help stewardship, that if you feel it in your heart, some people might do something about it. By what can we do? Well, donate to land conservancies, plant trees, plant all bare soil, drive a hybrid car, electric car, get solar panels, invest in solar and wind power, reduce plastics, which are of course made from fossil fuels, and reduce consumption of water and electricity. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Tammy. Next, Mie Preckler.
Hello all, and thank you for having me being part of this. What you are looking at is a moment in time of Mie Preckler, working on an ongoing site responsive work at iPark in East Haddam, Connecticut. The work is titled A Conversation with the Gravel Pit. It's also known as Mie's Trail. I will start with reading an outside perspective, a few paragraphs written by the ED of iPark for the 10th anniversary of this piece in 2012. So stay tuned. Next year is the 20th anniversary of the piece. And so a conversation with the gravel pit. Mie Preckler began work on her concept piece while an artist in residence at iPark in 2002. Mie's Trail, as the piece is known, reveals the complex beauty of the natural process of reclamation that has taken hold over the last 50 or so years in this once desolate site. Through Mie's gentle editing, a series of gardens have emerged from the underbrush and detritus of nature's steady cycles. Mie has returned to iPark each year since to maintain and refine the piece. In 2009, the scale of the project was significantly expanded when the gravel pit proper was joined to Mie's Trail to form the Gravel Pit Preserve, a space now dedicated to environmental preservation and observation. The rerouted trail traverses the gravel pit itself and gives the walker a more up-close and immediate exposure to nature's regenerative forces at work. Mie's Gravel Pit project was the first significant environmental art installation at iPark. This work helped galvanize our interest in and growing support for the aesthetic engagement of the iPark landscape, as well as the broader field of site-specific ephemeral art. So now I'll read you my statement on this piece, or to try to capture it a little bit. In October 2002, I started an intervention in the existing landscape at iPark. My intention was not to add anything, but to expose what was there through careful editing. I mapped out an area containing an abandoned gravel pit and constructed a trail meandering around its rim. The original trail linked 4 sites: the Pine Circle, the Mound, the Bowl, and the Cypress Garden. In 2011, I extended the trail into the gravel pit, a site that was originally transformed by man from lush woodland into a quarry, but which has slowly been reclaimed by nature. The expanded trail opens with the funnel, a V-shaped entrance garden that beckons you onto a small platform overlooking the wetlands. From there, you're carefully routed to experience the inherent beauty and stunning variety of this site. Every year, I return to iPark to maintain the trail and gardens, to re-engage with the landscape I have been involved in creating, and to document the subtle changes that have taken place since my last visit. I actually just returned from iPark this week, a few days ago, and it was a hard maintenance trip because I hadn't been for over 2 years since COVID. So nature can grow very fast in that time span, especially somewhere where it rains so much as in East Haddam, Connecticut. So I myself, I live in California, and I have to fly out there. So why on earth did I start a piece that needs so much work so far away? I don't know, but it is by now it's become my second home. And, I'd be happy to answer more questions about this later, in the Q&A section, but I hope I've given you a little bit of a sense of maybe the positive result from extraction. I'm really looking at how, this land was so damaged by, creating the gravel pit, and then how in conversation with nature, it's now becoming this incredibly, incredibly beautiful site. The gravel pit was once the dumping site of the property, and now it's really very revered by everybody, and hopefully it will stay for much longer. Thank you.
Okay, great, Mie. Thank you. Next, we have Jane Ingram Allen.
Hello, thank you. My name is Jane Ingram Allen, and I'm coming to you from Santa Rosa, California. And my piece is called Point Reyes Waterways. I wanted to focus on the water in this area. And since I've been living now in Northern California, I've experienced the severe drought, the wildfires, and other problems related to water caused by over-extraction. Extraction is a problem because of how we extract what we extract and how much we take without nature being able to replenish it. We have to extract something to make anything and to live. My focus is on the over-extraction of water, a crucial element for life. Overuse and extraction of underground water causes land subsidence. Global warming and climate change are causing droughts, flooding, rising sea levels, and other catastrophic events involving water. This piece I made specifically for the exhibition at Gallery Route 1 in Point Reyes, California. And I started by making handmade paper, which is made from plant fibers. And I made the paper blue because if you have blue water, usually that means it's not polluted. It's reflecting the sky. And then this handmade paper is joined by cotton threads. And it has seeds for blue wildflowers in the paper pulp. And it maps the waterways of Point Reyes. When I started looking at this place, I realized there was not much fresh water on the peninsula, and only a few small streams, and many of the areas coming in from the ocean are part saltwater and change with the seasons. So in this piece, I'm making water the positive space, and the land is represented by the negative space, the color of the wall. And hopefully, you know, this, by doing that, it's maybe making people think more about the water. I like the natural lines of rivers and streams and ocean coastlines. They are very similar to the paths of arteries and veins in living bodies, as well as the lines of tree roots and branches. Some of this piece was actually part of other wall installations I've done, mapping rivers in Northern California. I use all natural and biodegradable materials. My paper is made from plant fibers that I've obtained without destroying any living plants. The dye is non-toxic and the thread is natural fibers. This art can return to the earth and nourish it as compost and mulch, while the seeds can sprout and grow as wildflowers, becoming the food and habitat for wildlife. It goes with the idea of healing and regenerating. It is a critique of consumerism, over-extraction, the commercialization of art, and the destruction of our earth. Thank you to everyone for this opportunity, and I'll be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Jane. And next, what we're going to be doing is there were 3 artists in the exhibition who actually weren't able to participate in the presentations. So I'm going to go ahead and read their statements. This one, we're starting with Renee Owen, and her piece is called Mapping the Dead Zones, River Tracings. This triptych speaks to excessive water diversions from the Navarro River and its tributaries that are effectively killing this once wild waterway with sedimentation, siltation, and high temperatures. Over 400 tiny stones methodically collected from the river and embroidered on the pages of this homage stand in for once healthy cobble bars, for the ruined spawning habitat of endangered coho salmon and steelhead, and for the diminishing or absent wildlife like river otters, wild turkeys, mountain lions, coyotes, and bobcats. Miniature river roots embroidered onto the indigo fabric river stand in for dead and dying trees once lining the river, controlling water temperatures with their life-giving shade. Recent political dirty water rules assure that rivers like the Navarro may never recover, thanks in part to vanity vineyards and cannabis groves dotting the hillsides and valleys that make up this once rugged and beautiful watershed. Renee describes this embroidery of roots and stones as an act of meditation and healing stitch, standing against these illegal water diversions and dirty water rules that are bringing this slow death to our rivers and to ecosystems of flora and fauna. This next piece is by Allison Svoboda. It's called Lake Michigan Water Paintings, number 5. She says, using Lake Michigan water to soak the paper, I use industrial salts and simple pigments with algae blooms as mark-making tools. This body of work looks at the devastation we are wreaking on the Great Lakes water basin through industrial agriculture. It's one of 20 full moon pieces made since the shutdown in March 2020. She continues saying, during the pandemic, we all suffered a collective loss. Yet taking the time to slow down and take in the world right in front of us is one positive takeaway from the pandemic. The Buddhist saying, leaping from wave to wave in search of water, is the perfect analogy. To deal with the fear, anger, and sadness during the pandemic, I started a daily walking meditation, slowing down and taking in the natural world in front of me. From Chicago's restored native prairies to the moonrise over the lake, this observation of the sky or a body of water shifts our perspective to realize the vastness of the universe. For the entirety of the pandemic, I painted on the full moon, both marking time and honoring its phases. I created paintings outside in the elements, using wave action, the water, sand, salt, and sometimes seagrass or a cottonwood tree branch as mark-making tools. The alchemical magic that occurs is always a revelation. Is it cosmic or is it molecular? Does it represent destruction or regrowth? I would like to think there's a connection between the cycles of the moon and these alchemical reactions. I call my pandemic paintings of Lake Michigan radical plein air collaboration with water. I bring these oversized rolls of paper down to the shoreline and submerge them in the water. And then, depending on the wave activity, the rain or mist or season, the pigments are transformed by the elements. This art practice is my meditation, obsessive mark making my therapy, and the natural world my inspiration. The cycle of life and death and the fractals found in nature, from microscopic to galactic, are a constant fascination for me. Slowing down, deeply looking at nature, and watching the cycle of life, I allow my painting practice to become an intuitive response to life. Smaller worlds emerge within the alchemy of the water, pigment, and elements. The resulting image conveys the paradox of growth and destruction in nature, a reminder of our impermanence. And these two pieces are by Bambi Waterman. They're both called Reflection. The oranger eye is of an orangutan and the gray eye is of an elephant. These are her words. Reflection, an idea arising in the mind. Comment, our planet is in the throes of what scientists call the 6th major extinction, triggered not by a catastrophic and unavoidable act of nature, but by the impact of human society alone. We as humans are a reflection of what we value in society. Through my work, I am hoping to bring attention to the value of endangered species and that they are not something to discredit. My latest body of work continues to be an investigation of form in the natural world, in which each piece is a reflection of another. A variation of reflections of light, color, scale, form, positive, negative. Just as society chooses what values to possess, we have the choice to be a positive or negative reflection of those choices. Each species is important, if for no other reason than they are amongst the most wonderful expressions on earth. A reconsideration, a reflection. So thank you. Thank you to those artists for being in the show, even though they couldn't share in the presentations. And next, we invite Lauren Elder, Chair of WEED's Exhibition Committee, to talk a little bit about WEED's second extraction program, Extraction Exhibition, which starts soon. Lauren, are you here? Mary, would you like to talk about our next exhibition?
I'm here. I needed to unmute myself. I beg your pardon. I was just awestruck by the statements that we've just heard. And I was thinking to myself, I wish these were testimonials in front of Congress. There's so much sensitivity and wisdom represented in this group. And I wish for even greater fruition for all of it. We undertook this second show, I think partly as a response to the breadth and ambition of the Extraction Art Project. What we've seen at Gallery Route 1 is exquisite, and somehow we felt we needed to do it again. So we will be mounting work by about 28 more artists starting on this weekend and Monday for sure. And we hope that you all can, those of you who can attend the show. And there will be an opening in person on the 9th, Saturday from 12 to 4. And we're also planning a closing in January. And I have to say that the Peninsula Museum of Art sits on ancestral lands of the Ohlone. The band is the Ramai Tush, and being a bit of a smart mouth, I have to say it's on the ceded lands of the Tanforan racetrack. That was his former incarnation, and I was very startled to hear that during the war it was used as a processing point for the Japanese who were interned. So it has a tragic legacy to it. But I'm very happy about our partners, the Peninsula Museum of Art. They've really stepped up. And they're doing a very, I think, courageous and innovative thing. They're actually located in a shopping center by choice. They felt like their previous location as a fine art gallery in a obscure location was just not cutting it. And so they're trying to reach the general public through this move. And we're going to help them. So some of you who are in the Gallery Route 1 show will be appearing also at this show. And I thank you and look forward to mounting the work. I'll be happy to take questions during the next period. Thank you all. I'm really moved.
Thank you, Lauren.
Mhm.
I'm going to stop screen sharing so we can all see each other. And did any of you come with questions for each other?
He was the editor and is the main leader right now of the Extraction Project. So thank you very much for attending this presentation. And I would like to honor Edwin Dobb, who was also a co-founder of the project and has since passed away, and Peter Cook. So I think it's important to acknowledge that you spurred us on to lots of things. Our magazine is going to be on the same on extraction as well. Would you like to say a couple of words, Sam? Put you on the spot.
Sure. Yeah, well, first of all, thank you all for this event, for answering the call so powerfully and so I think emotionally and effectively. And yeah, I just feel really blessed to be here and to kind of witness these testimonials. This is actually the second conversation that I've had over Zoom today with artists who have been involved in the Extraction Project. And I think that's one of the most important things that we're actually doing, to be honest, like putting on these events, because Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, who's a climate scientist and really one of the effective climate communicators of our, and says that the most important thing that we can all do to address climate change is to talk about it. And for me, at least, I sometimes feel like when I talk climate change to friends and relatives, it kind of can make people a little bit uncomfortable and make, it kind of brings up some negative feelings sometimes. And so hesitate, I think, and it's really important.
We're having trouble hearing you, Sam.
Yes, I think your internet connection may be not strong.
Well,
get to speak to listen to all of your powerful stories. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. So, Christina, could you remind us, are we stopping at 7 or do we have, well, at 6, or will we go over for questions?
We're hoping that we'll get into such an exciting dialogue with each other that we'll just want to keep going, but we need to get it going.
All right. Okay, so I guess the protocol is that people can raise their hands either on the screen by going into reactions, or to also, you can also just raise your hand on the screen. I think it's a smaller group, so we can have questions without putting them all in the chat. Who would like to start? Yes, Tony.
I'm just on behalf of Gallery Route 1, I'm the board president. I just want to thank all the artists who participated in this exhibit. It's a very, very strong show, not just aesthetically, but in terms of what we are all learning when we look at your art. It's very, very powerful. And I just want to thank you for your commitment. And I feel like, you know, it's through art that we actually can change the world. And I feel that each of you, with your dedication towards the planet's health, is a really, each one of you is a powerful force towards healing. And I want to thank you all for being that, and prayers that we will heal this planet, this beautiful, beautiful gift that we've been given to live on. So thank you.
I have a question for Margaret LeJeune, to wondered if you'd speak about working with scientists and how you chose as an artist to do that.
Sure. Well, my project Growing Light grew out of actually my experience with sailing, and I had saw these dinoflagellates in the water in the Chesapeake Bay over the course of a couple of years when I was sailing, and then one year they were gone. And my curiosity about what was happening in the water drove me to speak with scientists and to research several works about different kinds of bioluminescence in the water and how those organisms change when there is changes to the water, either through temperature change or nutrient change or those types of things. And once I began that project, I just realized how very important collaboration was, and the expansive ideas that come from putting multiple heads together instead of one, so to speak. And since I began that project, I feel like I'm just so stimulated by working with others, scientists, writers, historians, environmental historians, have just really fed my work and my curiosity. I wonder, are others working with scientists as well? I know a few people mentioned.
Bonnie?
Yeah, I was really lucky to get involved in the University of Wisconsin's climate change project, which was back when Al Gore's movie came out. And that just started me on a whole new trajectory of working with climate data and working with scientists. And interestingly, when we started that, the scientists were very apprehensive about the artists and vice versa. And then we all just came together after a day of boring PowerPoints. And it was a great opportunity to learn and to get into something new.
I think it's really interesting the way that, working with scientists, we challenge each other's way of thinking and perceiving the world and thinking about asking questions rather than answering questions, right? This like different approach to problem solving, so to speak. And, through working with scientists, I really feel like my work has become much more investigatory. And I feel such a kinship to the scientists that I have worked with in their desire to really spread knowledge and understanding about, the climate crisis. And it's really helped to propel my work in so many interesting ways.
Yeah, I've really appreciated the opportunities too, because they've been happy to answer questions for years. Just getting to know them opened a relationship that continues.
This is Tammy. I mentioned in my presentation about a piece that was done on a glacier, and that was with a glaciologist. So we're talking about scientists. It seemed appropriate to bring that up. I worked with a glaciologist in Iceland. She helped me. I used her climbing rope, and I borrowed her crampons, and I helped her with her data collection on the iceberg as well. So, or the glacier as well. So it's a big part of my process as well. And I love it.
I'm curious, how do you how do you initiate a relationship with a scientist?
Are you asking me?
Whoever.
That time I just found somebody online and sent an email and kind of hoped that they were open to it. I also talked to a geologist in Iceland as well, because I did another project I was doing. And I found that they were very, yes, come, enjoy, let's talk. And they gave me actually more information that I knew what to do with, which was wonderful. And they were very encouraging of what I was doing, and for me to them as well. So just a little bit of luck and just having the courage to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Hey, Jane, you're muted.
Jane, do you have your?
I got it. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've worked with many plant scientists and doing residency projects in botanical gardens and nature parks, and doing handmade paper with many, many different plants around the world. That has made me much more aware of plants. And, I think they're sort of an undervalued part of our ecosystem. And, I've worked with many of those scientists in doing my works around the world.
Me, are you?
as part of next year's anniversary project, I've started to work with some botanists in the area to really map the native species in the gravel pit. And so that'll become, that's just a project that just started, which I think it's very exciting. I don't, I'm not a botanist. I work with the land, but I work very much from an aesthetic and a conceptual point of view. So it'll be very nice to, collaborate with these scientists to also understand the way that the land regenerates itself after such a devastating impact, and what's the hierarchy in the growth after that, and how it has changed the original landscape, before the gravel pit. So there's a lot of research to be done, but I think it's going to be very exciting. And I also want to say, thank you to everybody. And I'm very glad that there is a recording of this, because I really need to re-listen to all the statements, because there was so much information there that it was really hard to, grasp in this first go around. So hopefully we'll stay in touch with each other and can ask each other further questions as they arise, as we dig a little bit more deeper into each other's work. I think that's would be a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Me?
Yeah, Lauren.
Do the botanists have a sense of how the land regenerates, what the sequencing is, or?
I will find out.
Oh, but they in fact do.
But I have identified the people that can help me with that. Yes.
Okay, but they do indeed have a sense of what the sequence might be.
Dawn was next, and then Pamela.
I just have to, I'm actually, I feel like I'm from far away. I'm from Quebec, Canada. And so it's a pleasure to be here tonight. But my question had to do with, in terms of that relationship of artists of science, is people who are slightly outside of the official boundaries of science. And there's a whole group in California in permaculture who are doing incredible studies in permaculture. Has anybody, because many of you are from California, have you been looking into the permaculture communities that exist in California?
What kinds of studies are you referring to?
Permaculture.
I know, yes, I'm involved in the permaculture community, but I'm just curious about what studies you're thinking about.
Just people who have, on the ground level, not to make a pun, but on the ground level have been working over many years with permaculture, who don't have official, academic standing, but nevertheless have been creating communities and have been advancing much of it over the internet. Information about permaculture.
Right. Well, I'm personally really excited about the soil science that is evolving really quickly, and our knowledge about microbes in the soil, in the way that plants and microbes evolve together, and really the importance of having microbial life in the soil, which has totally been devastated by industrial agriculture, and the need to sort of restore really vibrant life in the soil. And that's something that it's not specifically permaculture, but it's certainly something that the permaculture movement really focuses on. And it's very exciting. And it's really about how we get carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and back into the soil where it's really beneficial. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Pamela had her hand up. Yeah, did you have your hand up, Pamela? You're muted.
Pamela, you're muted.
You're muted.
My question is for Tammy West, if she's still among us.
I'm here.
Hi. Did I mishear you, or did you say that you are in Texas or have started out in Texas?
I'm in Texas.
Okay. During the years that I spent in that state myself, droughts seemed to be a regular thing. And it seemed to me that there would be these horrible droughts like we're experiencing now, and like the one that we put in the show, the beautifully stitched earth. And then there would be these kind of floods with stobs sticking up. Is that where you first began to see that image, or is there an earlier inception?
It's kind of it's a series of pieces that started all that. Actually, the one that started it was the glacier piece, because I was just so sad about, what do we do to stop the glaciers? How do we stop this? And my desire to fix it, it was really about the grief of it, just like, oh no. And then it just kind of ballooned from there. And I started thinking about what was in my state. And yes, we do have major floods here. In fact, there's a storm coming tonight. So yeah, we get the boom and bust basically. 2011 was a horrible, horrible, horrible drought. But I guess it just kind of started me thinking about how climate change is affecting other places, how I can use media or environmental art to affect other people's emotions, and to kind of tie it all together, like literally tie the ground together, tie the glaciers together. There's a whole series. In fact, I have a solo show coming up soon which will have a lot of this in it in Austin. So yeah, thanks for your question.
Oh, absolutely. And your show, will it be mentioned on your website?
I can.
Your show in Austin.
Yeah, it's at the Prizer
Okay.
Gallery and Cesar Chavez on October 22nd to November 6th. Yeah.
Okay, I know where that is.
Ah, great.
Lauren, do you want to say anything about the work that you've done at scientific conferences where you've been bringing art activities or art into the environment there?
I can say, oops, yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on 2 occasions, I was invited to co-produce a week of artist workshops at international conferences of the Association for the Science of Limnology and Oceanography. What a mouthful. It's also known as ASLO or ASLO. And scientists from all over the world get together and present papers and posters about their work. And one of the very adventurous members of the conference, who had had a longstanding relationship with a dancer, realized what kind of parallels there were in his process and her process, and the ways they could inform each other. And so he took a risk and asked the conference organizers to invite us. And we had a dedicated space. And we're able, the second year was even better. We were in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the artist community there responded wholeheartedly. They were packing the workshops every day that we were there, and very enthusiastic and energetic. It was the younger scientists who were curious and would take advantage of the space, which was open all day long, to stop in and listen to the presentations and look around, because we had work that we had installed there as well. It was harder to access the older scientists because they were incredibly busy. And that was actually one of the, I'd say, challenges that I felt, was how do you actually tug on their sleeves and get their attention, and let them know that you can be an asset. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to return when they start holding in-person conferences yet again. So if you're interested in limnology, that's freshwater, or oceanography, you can get in touch with me. I think that's about all I have to say now. I'm still puzzling around about the best strategies for ways to sync up with their agendas. They tend to view art as more of an explanatory tool or an educational tool, and less value it for its intrinsic merits. So that's another level of challenge also. I wouldn't say that they're close, it's just it's a process, it requires time. I don't know if Bonnie or Margaret have experienced that, or Jane, but that's something that I found. Okay, I'll mute.
Well, I was going to say my second experience with University of Wisconsin was with the limnology department. And those people, since they have the background or basis of working with artists, are super responsive. But it does take experience or education, and sometimes professors are just super busy and will not answer an email, and you have to try someone else. I mean, I've gone to some extremes, like emailing all their colleagues, and their colleagues start emailing them, answer this person. So, but limnology is very interesting, big in Wisconsin.
I feel like I got really fortunate when I started becoming interested in the bioluminescence. I kind of naively reached out to Edie Witter, who is, you know, if you are interested in underwater explorations, she is the queen of that, having gone down the lowest depths in the ocean and photographed bioluminescent creatures. And she's sort of the queen of this world. And I expected to not get a response, but instead I got an invitation to come to her organization, and she literally handed me her recipe for creating the solution that I would need to grow the organisms in, and she was incredibly helpful. So I think that having a foot in the door, you know, and being able to say, oh, you know, Edie Witter is helping me out with this, has been, you know, has opened other doors, so to speak. And so I think just continuing to knock on the doors, like Bonnie said, it just, I think that there is interest in working with artists. But I agree that oftentimes it's considered a way to explain data, right? Rather than to think about the process of art making and the other values of it.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, do we have any other comments?
Judith Selby Lang, are you here? And have you worked with scientists at all in your investigations around plastic in the ocean?
I'm here. I'm here. Yes, I would put my camera on, but the sun is shining in very strongly right now. And I can do it. Let me see how this looks. Oh, see? Woo! Yes. Richard and I had a wonderful experience working with the Academy of Science people. Several years back, there was an exhibition called Built for Speed, and they put the America's Cup, it's a big deal, suspending from the ceiling, and it was a big hoo-ha about the America's Cup. Whether or not you felt good about that, I don't know. But at any rate, they invited us to create 3 large-scale ocean kiosks to address the important issues that they felt were important. And so we were enlisted to talk about plastic pollution, which is our prime directive, but also to deal with the issue of overfishing and with called flows to the bay, toxics, oil, things that get washed down the waterway and into the ocean. And these were really intended to be not only entertaining, but primarily educational. And we did some fun things for that, because we also had a lot of engagement with the scientists there about how to message things in a way that's going to, they have a lot of kids, a lot of field trips, people of all ages going through. And I think one of the funnest and most successful was a series of cans. We got large gallon cans, and we made a series of labels that would address issues of overfishing. These look like fishing, cans of fish, but they had subtle messages like, would you like to be the person to eat the last tuna? or the penultimate can of salmon, and the bycatch fish. And to use good humor as a way to engage the audience was really important in that exhibit. So it was a wonderful opportunity to work with a great team and to really speak to a different audience, not necessarily an art-going audience, but people that would go to the Academy of Science.
Right. Thank you.
I had an experience once. It was in the 80s, and I had taken some cartography classes. And I went to my local environmental group and asked them if they wanted any maps or if they wanted me to do anything in the way of art as sort of volunteering. And they said, yes, we want you to go to Covelo, to the Forest Service, and find out about logging and also about how much they had replanted. And I thought, okay, that was like a big chore, but I did. I talked to the head ranger, and he said, oh yeah, that'd be great. So they gave me all this information, and finding out that people really do want to work with you. You know, they really see this as something exciting to do. So I made a base map, and then I had an overlay of areas that had been logged. And then I had another one of areas that had been replanted. And, you know, there was a lot of information in there, but you could really see how much they hadn't replanted. But anyway, it was just sort of a great opportunity to do something, and very easy when you go to some group that's a nonprofit, because they always want volunteers, of course, but we have skills as artists that are unique to you know, to different people. So that was fun, worked out really well, and I think they had it printed, the environmental group. But one other thing I wanted to say was about the GRO gallery, and how they have this room in the back that they call their project space. And anyone can apply to have a show there. And it is usually, Tony's going to know more about this, but it's, you know, it's usually a group that is dealing with political art or environmental art, or, you know, something that's of social value or environmental value. And I think it's such a great gallery that it has this as part of their mission to sort of reach out and allow other groups to have shows there. You know, it might be a social group that went through, you know, development, and their final project was art related. So I just was so impressed. I mean, because I was a member there for 4 years, impressed with what they did with their widespread community effort, and also environmental and political. So it's a good, and you can just go to their website and find the links for that. Thank you.
Tony.
All right, thank you so much, Linda. We miss you tremendously, by the way, in the gallery. Linda's a great member. The project space, I believe tomorrow is the deadline for a current deadline for proposals to the project space. And we show works that deal with environmental concerns, social justice, immigration. It's a place for our visiting artists. And so any of you would be really a prime candidate for submitting work to this, to the project space. And you can go to Gallery Route 1 and look under project space, and it will direct you as to what to do.
And the weed show is in the project space.
That's right.
Right, so you just saw pictures of the layout.
Right.
I just put into the chat a link to a blog post about the Built for Speed exhibition. And also really, I'd completely forgotten that Richard and I got dressed up as scientists. You'll see the link to the Connect with the Scientists. We put on white coats and we had a display and we had all of our plastic there. And we just talked to passersby, and we love dressing up as scientists. So if you can't find a scientist to work with, just be one yourself.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Christina, would you like to continue, or are we ready to close?
Does anybody have any last thing they'd like to share?
All right, well, thank you all for contributing so beautifully. And just want to remind you that this is, we're starting our 25 Years of Weed campaign to raise money to redo our directory pages. So if you'd like to donate or contribute to this cause, it would be most appreciated if you appreciated this presentation. And come look at our newsletter and come to the next show, and there'll probably be some presentations related to it. It's going to be on for 3 months. And as the extraction, I went to the earlier session of the extraction project in London and saw Sam there this morning. And if anybody wants to continue and do another project in relationship to the bigger extraction project, then it's welcome. So thank you all for doing your wonderful organizing, and for all the artists that participated and all the viewers that came. And thank you very much.
And I'll just say that I'm looking forward to being involved with many of you starting this weekend and into the future. It's really rich.
And seeing you at our opening at Peninsula Museum of Art on October 9th from 12 to 4.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.